on the program. The day is Thursday, 27th of October 2022, a day that President Ruto's cabinet is now complete with 24 appointees now being sworn into office. But the big question is, what now lies ahead? What is their designated jobs? And we'll be having that conversation right here in studio as to what is the next step forward now that they have officially been flagged off to do their job. I will be speaking to Elkanah Mogaka, who is a constitutional lawyer, and Shadrach Wambui, who is an advocate of the High Court. So feel free to send in your questions. What are your thoughts on the 24 appointees at Lookuptv on Twitter, Lookuptv on Facebook, and Lookuptv on our official YouTube channel? But before we get into the business of the day, here are the highlights.
The news headlines. In association with
I, Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi,
do swear that I will at all times be faithful to the Republic of Kenya,
conscientiously,
so help me God.
Tonight on Lookup News, all systems go as Ruto's cabinet secretary is sworn into office. 5 more DCI officers arrested in connection with missing Ruto's poll experts. And in our weekly feature of Boneman, we focus on the hustlers of Nairobi.
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349K. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the City Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optivent's plot of land, you get 10K cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
Once more, welcome to the broadcast. I am Nancy Nelima, and our sign language interpreter for tonight is Philista Adundo. And the broadcast begins now. President William Ruto has demanded service delivery from his cabinet and has cautioned against any lackluster in the performance of assigned duties. Speaking after officially swearing in a list of 24 individuals to work in his cabinet, the head of state has stated the sworn-in members must keep an open-door policy and operate within the spectrum of the Constitution. The cabinet secretaries start their work immediately and are expected to help President Ruto to deliver on his pre-election promises.
Franklin Midika Linturi, being a Cabinet Secretary of Kenya, do swear
I will at all times be faithful to the Republic of Kenya,
that I will obey, respect, and uphold this Constitution of Kenya. Except with the authority of the President, I will not directly or indirectly reveal the nature of contents of any business, proceedings, or document of the cabinet committed to my secrecy.
One by one, cabinet secretaries in the Kenya Kwanza government took their oath of office.
I, Eliud Okech Owalo.
The oath that ushers in a new chapter in President William Ruto's regime. These men and women are expected to be critical in his quest to steer the nation towards profound service delivery. And so, the commander-in-chief made clear his demands.
I haven't appointed any cabinet for any region or for any county or for any community. I have appointed a cabinet of Kenya. I expect you to respect your oath of office and serve all Kenyans equally.
The head of state remaining unequivocal that all his cabinet secretaries must respect the Constitution and operate within the dictates of the law.
I expect each and every one of you, as I do, of all public servants, to uphold the Constitution, and the rule of law to be front and center in the administration of our government. That should be the guiding principle.
As he sets his goals on delivering on his pre-election manifesto, President Ruto has called for synergy amongst his various ministries, warning against infighting that may have a knock-on effect on service delivery.
I do not expect any one of you to say things are not going right in the next ministry. It is your business. If things are not going right in the next ministry, it is your business to look for your colleague, sit them down, and things must go right in your ministry and in the next ministry.
Ruto wants his ministers to respect other arms of government, urging them to embrace elected leaders in key decisions.
The people of Kenya have elected their representatives. We have members of parliament, we have members of the Senate, who are the people's representatives. I expect that we are going to work together in a respectful manner with our elected leaders.
All the sworn-in cabinet secretaries have an assurance from President Ruto that they will enjoy his full support and will be given a conducive environment to operate in.
You will have my wholesome support. You will have my support because you have no option other than to succeed. Failure is not an option, good people. We have a country to look after. We have a plan to implement. And we have the people of Kenya watching us.
This assurance, though, coming with a firm warning.
James chapter 4, verses 17. And I want you to record it somewhere and put it on your desk. Because that part of the Bible says, he who knows what is right and doesn't do it, it is counted to him or her as sin. Good people, I have told you what is right. We have agreed what is right. So if you don't do it, you will not only miss heaven, but you will have a problem with me.
In his swearing-in speech to the men and women he expects to work with for the next 5 years, President William Ruto is very categorical that they must serve the people of Kenya equally without any discrimination. With the cabinet now fully constituted, the work is cut out for Kenya Kwanza government. Henry Tende, Lookuptv, State House, Nairobi.
Thank you, Tende, for that report. Now, 22 cabinet secretaries have been sworn in today at the State House, and the 22 cabinet secretaries will assist the new administration under President William Ruto to achieve its mandate. Now, let's take a look at the cabinet secretaries and their ministries. Right, and there you have it, 22 cabinet secretaries who have been sworn in today and now officially begin work. And remember to catch that conversation that we'll be having later on in this bulletin. Moving on, 5 more officers from the disbanded SSU unit have been arrested and arraigned in connection to the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals and their driver. The 5 were arrested at the Internal Affairs Unit headquarters in Upper Hill, Nairobi. Ian Keitani with more details.
Including Joseph Mwanda, Simon Gikonyo, Paul Njogu, Stephen Luceno and David Chepcheng were arrested on Thursday night and appeared before Justice Diana Mochache at the Kahawa Law Courts.
Your Honor, what the defense counsel wants or expects, and I don't think this honorable court will entertain or ought to entertain, is preferential treatment, where the respondents want to cherry pick specific police stations within Nairobi County where they can be comfortable. It is only for a reasonable time for the investigations to be conducted, to be completed, and for findings to come out of those investigations, and we can be able to move forward.
According to a statement from the National Police Service, the 5 are being investigated for the offences of conspiracy to commit a felony, contrary to Section 393 of the Penal Code, and abduction, contrary to Section 254 of the Penal Code. The arrest coming just 4 days after 4 other SSU officers were arrested in connection to the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals who are believed to have been part of President William Ruto's campaign team, together with their Uber driver. On Wednesday, Kahawa Magistrate Diana Mochache dismissed the objection challenging the Internal Affairs Unit powers to seek orders to detain them for 30 more days. However, the Internal Affairs Unit continues its investigation into the murders and requested for 30 days to conduct DNA tests.
I urge and I submit this honorable court that the respondents be detained where they are at Industrial Police Station. And we'll be ready to dispose this matter on Monday and be guided by the court's determination thereafter.
Mochache allowed an application by their lawyer Danstan Omari to file a formal response application against the state request to have them detained for 30 days, with the matter scheduled for mention on Monday, October 31st, where the magistrate will make a ruling.
Prepare a red carpet for me. I'm coming. So this matter is fixed for hearing on Monday, the 31st. Thank you, and call out the next file.
Ian Keitani, Lookuptv.
Thank you, Keitani. Now, activities along Naivasha-Kirima Road came to a standstill for over 3 hours after Karate residents took to the streets to protest a rise in criminal cases in the area. The residents called on police officers to act quickly and restore security.
Over the past few weeks, several areas in Naivasha have experienced a crime wave targeting livestock, business and homesteads.
Kwa kila boma kumeibiwa ng'ombe na wengine kuku, pia hata vitu za nyumba. Wanakuja mchana na jioni, wanafungua kwa nyumba, wanatoa vitu.
During the demonstrations, the residents accused officers from Karati police station for aiding the crime.
Sheria mikononi mwetu. Hatutaki kupangwa tena, maana tumeona hawataki kutusikiza. So kwa hivyo tunaamua ya kwamba kuanzia leo kwa security ni sisi tutakuwa kwa security, maana hatuna usaidizi. One
of the leaders, Erastus Kahugo, noted that nearly all homes had been affected by theft, forcing many farmers to shift their livestock in a bid to protect them.
Hapa tumekuwa kila wakati tunatoka usiku, especially mimi kwangu ng'ombe zangu zinalala kwa nyumba, wamekuja zaidi ya mara 5.
Nelly Wanjiko, a resident, said that it has become a norm for the thieves to break into their homes and businesses in the area, leaving them to suffer great losses.
Tuko na chifu mzuri sana kwa sababu kama sasa tunapotoka yeye hutoka, lakini sasa security yenye tumeletewa hapa, hiyo ndiyo shida kwetu, kwa sababu si mara moja, sio mara mbili. Wamekuwa wakija every day. Wanakuja kwa manyumba zetu na wanatoa ng'ombe zetu.
Martha Wairimo narrated how her hotel was broken into, with the suspects making away with the food, items and personal effects.
Hapo Karati Center, hapo tu karibu na polisi. Niliimbiwa unga yenye imekandwa ya mandazi, nikaimbiwa sukari yenye haijakandwa, karai, mafuta, wakabeba masufuria, wakabeba mpaka maziwa yenye ilikuwa imebaki, wakakula kwanza chakula, wakabeba mpaka maziwa, wakakula chochote yenye ilikuwa imebaki huko na wakafunga na wakaenda.
Mitaru Ann, Lookuptv.
Nderiat Primary School in Bomet East Sub-County has benefited from 8 classrooms and 9 washrooms from the WE organization. The facilities launched are set to improve learning in Bomet County and improve the standards of livelihood among locals. There's and more in our local roundup.
During the handing over function held at Nderiat Primary School in Bomet, East Sub-County, the County Governor Hilary Barchok commended the organization for training women groups on entrepreneurship, noting that the county is putting programs in place to promote farmers' income in the county.
Tumeweza kusaidika kama Nderiat community. Hii shule imeweza kufaidika na ujenzi wa madarasa. We have 8 classrooms that have been constructed. Wameweza kuwapa chakula uchi, and that is a very important component. Nutrition for our children is very important.
Meanwhile, residents of Kisii and Nyamira counties have been urged to register for a water connectivity program under implementation for 3 months by Gusii Water and Sanitation Company Jiwasco in accordance to manifestos of Governors Simba Arati and Amos Nyaribo. The Jiwasco board chairman David Obure has indicated that the program is set to supply water to far-flung areas within the 2 counties.
I will actually take this opportunity to appeal to our residents of both Nyamira and the Kisii County, considering that this is a cross-cutting service that is there, to take this opportunity that they come and register with us so that they can be able to have water connected.
In other stories, Machakos County's government officials have been said to be earning a double salary in possession of fake academic credentials. This was revealed by the Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti as she presided over the swearing-in ceremony for various task forces that will be investigating the current state of affairs in the county. Wavinya has now appealed to the task force to perform its duties with honesty and give correct recommendations, stating that her government will deal and do away with such cases of corruption.
One case officer with same task pin but with different payroll numbers. Hawa ni wakufungwa na kuwekwa kwa jela na waame na jela. And there is no mercy.
Susan Jerry, Lookuptv.
And now to some business. Telecommunication giant Safaricom has today launched the first 5G fixed wireless network in the country. The 5G network will enable their customers to have super fast internet at home and at work, with the company targeting 10,000 customers in the internet plans. Edijon Mukoro reports on this and other stories in our business wrap.
The first thing is customer obsession.
With the high demand for fast and reliable internet, Safaricom has launched 5G network for fast internet connectivity. Speaking during the launch, Safaricom CEO Peter Ndegwa has said the launch of 5G is a first step in empowering retail and enterprise customers to start exploring new opportunities. The 5G ready zones are Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Kakamega, and Kisii.
5G ushers in an era of new possibilities, as you'll have heard. The promise of connectivity with low latency and high reliability will enable extraordinary experience for every industry, for every business, and for the society.
Safaricom, you continue to play your part and have covered nearly the entire country with a 4G network.
Elsewhere, Kensod Limited Managing Director Perry Kansaga has offered 20 acres of land to construct a new modern fully fledged school to support the poor community access education in Magarini Sub-County in Kilifi County. Kasanga has said the school will be built in phases starting from the kindergarten, then primary, and later a secondary school. Kasanga has also pledged over 4 million shillings annually to support students for bursaries.
It is actually something that is an invention. It needs a lot of thinking on my part. I need to spend time here. I've got to be here. I've got to look at it and say, okay, look, let's position this here. Let's do that there. And then it'll take shape. It will take time, but it will happen. And I'd like to see tangible improvements and tangible progress as we move.
Approximately 650 online taxi drivers from Bolt and Uber in Mombasa City have down their tools over what they have termed as non-compliance to law by the companies they operate under. The drivers have protested the lowering of commission from the current 25 to 30% to 18%, saying it is making them a loss. Finally,
Workers at Zena Rose's flower farm in Uasin Gishu County have demonstrated, demanding for their pay due for the last 3 months outside the premises, saying the management has not been listening to their grievances nor explained to them the reason for the delayed payments, demanding government intervention. They have vowed not to work until their grievances are addressed. Edwin John Mokora, Look Up Business.
Away from business into our weekly feature of Born a Man, we bring you the story of a 30-year-old Kevin Mwenda. I beg your pardon, I'll just take that again. We bring you the story of 30-year-old Kevin Mwenda, 32-year-old Peter Mundia, and 28-year-old Michael John Kamau, who narrate their challenges and wins exploring the Juakali sector in the city. They've had their lowest moments as men, but forge ahead since society provides no excuses for men.
A soft rendition that carries a witty message. Michael John Kamau, Kevin Mwenda, and Peter Mundia, the trio man band. They meet here after their daily duties to try compose a few lines with the hopes that one day their efforts of pursuing music will pay off. Peter Mundia, now 32, is a father of one. His job came to a sudden halt, forcing him to embark on the Juakali sector. It has been 2 tough years of running a personal business, with a diploma in refrigeration and air conditioning.
Wale yusunyo natoka university like last year ama this year, wakona chances ndogo sana za job. Kuna ready job for them. Because I mean, kwa shule 2016, 2015. Saizi, like 6 years, sina job.
Unlike Peter Mundia, Kevin Mwenda's education ended at Form 4. With passion in music, he hopes to make a breakthrough as a disc jockey and a songwriter. The economy, however,
by default, you have, the responsibilities for your smaller sibling. Switching from the corona period now to getting back to how we're living now, nobody knows even tomorrow what will be changed. Nobody knows what to expect tomorrow. Even right now, we don't know what to expect.
Michael John Kamau, the youngest, at only 28, tough life experiences have taught him as a man to toughen up. A guitarist, a hairdresser, and an event organizer.
Challenges ni kibao, mainly zingine kutoka home, background, unaona. Maybe backgrounds tuko up, unaona. So kufika hata hapa by kufanya kama gitaa, unapata saa nyingine nataka kukulania hiyo gitaa but sina hiyo gitaa yangu mimi mwenyewe, unaona. Nikiongelea mambo ya music maybe. Shughuli hasa kama locks, dready, sometimes unapata sina my own shop ama spa na have kuja kwa msee anipe mboka ndo baki tena ni commission ama kila msee anakula keki yake.
Wakati hiyo ndio tumekosana like hauna ile surety like end month ndakuwa nimeshaga hiyo ndo imetosha za kulipa rent na kufanya hiyo tu kutokuwa na stable jobs. Hiyo ndio challenge.
Sometimes you might end up having to carry stuff for someone to pay you, helping with the luggage or something. Sometimes it's not even for the rent money or something, just to keep yourself stable. Kuna nguvu ya kungojea kesho. Hiyo ni hope.
Keja, kiroma, nini, hizo shida za kila mtu, lakini kuna ile point tu yako wewe mwenyewe ukikumbuka kitu fulani ama ukiangalia kitu fulani, lakini bado unainuka unasonga.
Huku chini kuna stress more. Mabozi wengi wako na depression. Hata mimi nimekuwa kwa situation, nilikuwa depressed. Back for like 1 year ago. Depressed mbaya juu. Like yani you hustle hard, but at the end of the day it's hard. Kuna kitu. Kenda kijani wanataka rent ndio hiyo. Tokens za stima ndio hizo. So unaona pia pale familia yako inaanza ama people depend on you. Wakaanza kuona au nini au fiki nzuri. Ama provide with inafaa, unaona? It's always sad. Even hata wewe mwenyewe ukiona mtu wako hajakula, ako njaa, unaona? Wife hadi ana nguo nini? Unajua somehow inakubreak kama mwanaume.
Mwanaume anaonekana ni kama anapotea ama ashughulikiwi, ambapo mwanaume ndo anashikilia vitu mingi sana. Alafu society na misjudge mwanaume juu maybe unapata msee ameenda amekata mavitu zake, lakini hujui nini anapitia, unaona?
Even if you write a song, even if you put out a song, you don't know if it's going to work or not. So we still striving with the music, but I know, and I'm a strong believer in my work, so I really believe I'll achieve everything I want.
Hakuna kitu naweza Farada alikuwa anaogopa kuambia tunakaa na wao, job imeisha juu. Morido alikuwa anategemea sana hiyo kazi. Bora tukijenga tuko physically tuko sawa, lakini pia tukikosa kuwa empowered, kuna venye boy child anaumia huku chini. Na boy child akiumia huku chini haongeangi.
Tunes of hope and encouragement, and when they are not here, they're attending to alternative hustles to earn that extra coin to survive in the city, but most importantly, to ensure that those exclusively depending on them never run against a wall. Cecilia Lubanga, Lookuptv.
That segment comes to you every single Thursday right here on Lookuptv, and of course it focuses on the successes and failures that men have learned from in their lives. We do have to take a very fast break here on the program, but we'll be back with our conversation in studio. Remember, we are looking at the cabinet secretaries who have been sworn in today. What is in their entry? What are their expectations? Do let us know what your thoughts are at Lookuptv on Twitter, Lookuptv on Facebook, and Lookuptv on our YouTube channel. We take that break. Don't go too far.
For all your football, F1, and World Cup kits, Carrington Sportswear Hub is your plug for quality, sporty merchandise. Call us on 0703 484 481.
The International Handball Federation brings you great sporting action that's full of pomp, color, energy, tackle, and thrill. The IHF Trophy Africa Zone 5 Youth and Junior Men Games. 8 countries, 16 teams, 36 games. All these sporting action to be held at the Ulinzi Sports Complex and at the Nyayo National Stadium Handball Courts in Nairobi, Kenya. Games start at 12 noon till late, as from Tuesday the 25th to Saturday the 29th. Entry is free. Only carry your identification document. This action is proudly brought to you by the International Handball Federation in conjunction with the Kenya Handball Federation in partnership with Lookuptv and Muthingi TV.
Hapa kazi tu inaendelea kuwasaka na kuwatambua wale ambao wanafanya kazi extraordinary na zile kazi za kujituma.
Biashara yote unaambiangwa, as long as you have a plan, you can do it. Our service is about kufurahisha the customer.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni hapa kazi tu.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Finding fault.
For staying with Lookuptv. The hashtag is #LookupNews. Time now for us to get into a conversation of the day. I remember President William Ruto's cabinet is now complete after 24 appointees took oath of office today, Thursday, October the 27th. And of course, we're looking into now what awaits them as they assume office. And to help me talk about this is right next to me, Elkanah Mogaka. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the program, constitutional lawyer. I have not said your designations, constitutional lawyer. And on the far end is Shadrach Wambui, who is an advocate to the High Court.
Thank you. Thank you,
Welcome,
Nancy.
gentlemen. Thank you for having us. Right. And they were nominated. There were questions for at least a month. People just talking about the suitability. There are more politicians than there were in the previous government of Uhuru Kenyatta. So I'd just like to pick your thoughts even before anything. I'll start with you, Elkanah. Let's talk about what you make of the vetting process. Maybe who was your best candidate and who didn't perform as well, according to you?
I don't want to pick and choose and try to vet myself, the cabinet secretaries, as they have already been vetted by the parliament. But I do believe that the vetting process was important because these cabinet secretaries will be carrying the national legislative agenda, and the legislative agenda comes from parliament. You cannot find that, you do find that the cabinet secretaries are not going to be in parliament. Right. The bulk of them are not coming from any political positions. They are coming into office from outside. A lot of them are not affiliated to any political party, so they are strangers to parliament. So first and foremost, the vetting process is to get to two arms of government to introduce themselves to each other, get to know and understand how each other operate, so that after they assume office as they have, there is already a kinship and a conversation being had between the parliament and the other arm of our government, being the executive. Yes.
Shadrach, what are your thoughts? What do you make of the process that had been 1 week long?
Nancy, thank you once again for having us. And what I have made of the process is that we've been having what is called a constitutional ritual, so that the constitution creates what is called a government. And the government that the Kenyans decided to have for themselves is that of the Kenya Kwanza government. And the Kenya Kwanza government, in order for the government itself to function, it must have some appendages in terms or in the form of the cabinet secretaries. So the cabinet secretaries, of course, we saw with the swearing in of the president, the appointments that followed thereafter, then of course with the vetting process that we saw, whether people will decide it was a formality or not, but it is still a constitutional ritual that had to be followed, so that we saw Parliament doing what they are supposed to do. In any event, it is not our responsibilities. It's not my responsibility to decide who probably came out first or came out last. It is the responsibility of the parliamentarians. They did discharge their duty, and after discharging their duty, now we have had what we've seen today. the ultimate ritual where we have had the 24 men and women being sworn in their various cabinet positions, which in itself is, it's a demonstration of two things. First is, number one, we now have witnessed the rubber meeting the road in terms of now the government of the Kenya Kwanza now taking off. And secondly, we have seen by at least demonstration that the last indications of the retired president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, being out of the executive. Because up until today, we had the likes of Matiang'i, however unpopular he was during that period of time, he was still in office. Up until today, when someone else has been sworn in terms of, Professor Kithure Kindiki, and has taken up over that mantle. Yes.
And of course, let's talk about now the 22 cabinet secretaries. And looking at how the process was, there were 3 candidates, Aisha Jumwa, Mithika Linturi, as well as Penina Malonza, whose suitability had been questioned by the minority, questioned Aisha Jumwa and Mithika Linturi's suitability. And of course, unanimously, Penina Malonza's suitability came under questioning. But Parliament approved anyway. So what do you make of that?
I believe this was the first big test put forward to Kenya Kwanza to see whether they would hold as a unified front when the selections made by their president was put under scrutiny and a question by the parliamentarians and the committee that was vetting these people. So first and foremost, there was a political reaction. All the parliamentarians on the Kenya Kwanza side came together and as a show of might and unity, all passed through the unanimous vote of all the cabinet secretary nominees to show that their president was right. They are not going to fault their boss at the very beginning, so that the third arm of government can be completed and now the government business can begin.
Right. Okay, but we're talking about Aisha Jumwa, who has a murder charge in the court, as well as Mithika Linturi, who has up to 35 cases. And for Penina Malonza, if you watch the process, then you could tell she looked unprepared. And several times, even the speaker mentioned it, said you don't have to state the facts if you're not sure. So, but seeing this, all these sort of discrepancies, but the process goes on anyway. So is Parliament a conveyor belt? That is the big question.
Aisha Jumwa has been charged with murder. Aisha Jumwa has not been convicted of murder. These are two very different classifications. Charges and convictions are two very separate things, and this government does not want to act as the judge, jury, and executioner of individuals who have not been adjudicated by the court. The same goes for Mr. Linturi, who has taken up the agriculture mantle. He does have 35 matters in court, none of which have been concluded. Upon the conclusion of these matters, we can now bring these issues back to Parliament and ask, this person has failed to pass the test of integrity based on convictions that have been given by the court. When you look at Penina Malonza, by the time she had been selected by the president, our vetting in Parliament under the 100 lights and the millions of Kenyans who are watching might have pressured her into not being able to answer as well as she could have. But before any decision is made by the president, you must be sure through him, through his supporting cast, through all his advisors, they did pick the best team they thought for the job. So by the time she was being vetted, the vetting process, irrespective of how it went under the forceful light of camera, considering she's coming into a new job, she does require a chance, at least, to be allowed into the position.
What happens to any of us when you go for a job interview and you fidget or you're scared to speak? Will you ever get a call back?
It depends on where you're working. If you are working under the camera in front of 48 million Kenyans, you might falter once or twice, but you should be given the chance once you're privately in the office. Perhaps you are more functional when you're on your own terms than when you're under the lights of 48 million people watching.
Okay. I don't know if you agree with him, Shadrach.
Well, I take the view that the process that we saw, we were entertained by the members of parliament, at least during the approval process, is telling that the process in itself was not a merit-driven process, is in itself a political process, so that whatever we saw the president do, following his declaration as the president of the Republic of Kenya, that was rallying numbers. Him trying to sway or persuade the members of the UDM, trying to persuade some of these independent candidates to join his team. I mean, that was telling of a man who was prepared to tackle the challenges of the future. So that one of the greatest challenges that was posed, remember, was after the approval process, or the minority dissenting views from a majority of the members of the ODM holding the view respectfully so that they did not think that the Honorable Aisha Jumwa was fit to occupy that position, or her counterpart Mithika Linturi. I mean, these are disgruntled members of the Azimio, One Kenya Alliance. And in any event, you did not even expect anything different to come from them. You expected that they will dissent as against the Honorable Aisha Jumwa for having walked out of ODM, a party that had sponsored her to parliament, the party that had even sponsored her to the Parliamentary Service Commission. She had spoken down as against their political leader, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So you expected at the very least that they would, of course, not approve of her appointment. The cases that they kept mentioning, the murder case that we are handling in Mombasa, I mean, that is just but a distractor. Really, the main issue is about political affiliations, so that we do not see any person who was probably in the pre-election, campaigns, allied to the Azimio One Kenya Alliance, being appointed or nominated for that position. Yes, so the outcome there, especially in terms of those dissenting voices, was something that was expected. When you speak about Malonza, now, the marshalling that happened in Parliament at the plenary session is now telling of the wit that the president and his deputy have been exercising all through this political process after their declaration as president and deputy president-elect and their swearing in. So that anything that goes to the floor of the House with the huge numbers that they enjoy, remember, they are the ones that are currently enjoying the majority, the leadership in Parliament. So it essentially means that anything that has been fronted by the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, and his deputy, is going to see the light of day. And that is probably what we call the stupidity of democracy. So that in the majority of their numbers, they will always succeed, whether whatever they are trying to, pass or cause to fail is right or wrong. So that is now the stupidity of democracy, if you ask me.
Okay, and the cabinet is part of the executive, but many times it's not void of politics. And so would you say, Elkanah, then that the 22 cabinet secretaries are the best that Kenya has to offer? Or President William Ruto, like critics say, was just, paying back loyalty?
You can look at it from two angles. First and foremost, the vehicle that brought the president to power was powered essentially by the gentlemen and ladies who are currently sitting in those offices. So will the principal secretaries that are going to be under them, the ambassadorial posts are going to be under them. These are going to be the first and foremost decision makers, because they chose the loyalty of the opposing party that was trying to take over government. Now that they succeeded, it will be aghast if the president does not fortify his position by putting the people who fought tooth and nail for him from day one until the day they were inaugurated together with his deputy. If you look at how the parliament is operating, at how even from the county levels, most of Kenya Kwanza is operating, they are speaking with one voice, and that is the president's voice. And if the president was to select a team that he believes would speak with his voice, this is the team he chose. And anything outside of that should not be a consideration. Outside of that, you cannot then pick a team which is unqualified, and you can find that 23 out of 24, according to the plenary, were all found to be qualified, were all found to be aware of what offices they're coming into. So education-wise, they were ready. Experience-wise, they were ready, save for one individual who they had issues with. But according to the president's team that selected her, they found that she was ready before they sent her to parliament. Okay. And so that's why the parliament then came and fortified the cabinet behind the president, so that the one voice that Kenya Kwanza is speaking with, coming from cabinet, is the voice of the president. That should be the consideration.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts, Shadrach?
Well, Nancy, if you are a Christian and you have the chance of reading the book of Ecclesiastes, you will establish, probably I might not remember the correct verse, but there is a verse that tells us that, the race is not for the swift. The battle is not even for the strong, but time and chance happens to all of us. So really, it might not be correct that those men and women who form part of the cabinet currently are the best that Kenya has to offer. Far from it. But at the very least, these are men and women that chance has happened to them. They could be having their strengths, just like everybody else has their strengths, and just like everybody else has their weaknesses. But at the end of it all, it's a recognition probably in the speech that was made by the president, Dr. William Ruto. He acknowledges that he has had a previous interaction with, if not all, but most of his cabinet secretaries. He also made the acknowledgement, if you heard him keenly, that he has had a past with these members of cabinet, and during the process of picking up the names of these men and women, he thought very deeply about their qualifications and about the synergy that they will be having. So really, at the end of it all, is about finding a team that you can work with. It's finding a team that you will build on their strengths, so that their strengths will somehow overlook their weaknesses. And ultimately, and you have heard also from the president, even from the shots that you've played on air, is that he's encouraging that there should be a responsibility across board. Whatever is happening even in the neighboring ministry should be your concern. So that if you are weak on certain areas and the other one is strong on certain areas, but is also strong in some of the portfolios that you have been given, so it will also be your responsibility to also help your colleague who is in charge of the other ministry. So ultimately, after all is said and done, Nancy, the view that I hold quite respectfully is that what the president has done is that he has looked for his working team. He cannot be faulted for that. And in any event, he recognizes that after all is said and done, the buck will stop with him.
Right. And let's take a look a little bit about his speech today after his cabinet is now fully constituted. And Ruto spoke about integrity and just saying that they should stay away from nepotism. And of course, as well, he talked about upholding the Constitution. But first of all, the question of integrity, which of course came across at the panel when the 24 were being vetted in Parliament. And of course, some of the appointees, as we have mentioned, there are a few cases here and there as pertains integrity. So, and kind of where people already have these cases in court, then where do we stand if they are found guilty?
According to our new constitution, integrity questions had not been fully defined. We find that before 2010's constitution, the mere sight of charges in court would force or obligate the president at the time to ask cabinet ministers, as they were called at the time, to step aside, go finish their cases, and at such time as those cases were finished, come back into office. But you'd find that Kenyan legal system is very slow sometimes, and before you get acquittals or convictions in a matter, you could find that your time as cabinet minister is finished. So as the constitution was passed and we came into this new constitutional dispensation after 2010, the first leaders we elected had cases going on at the international Court of Justice, International Criminal Court. We as Kenyans decided that the question is not, are we charging these people in a court of law? The question we have is, are they convicted persons? They are not. Let us protect and work with our own, despite these questions of integrity being raised and not being yet answered. So until such a question is answered upon conviction, then we can come to answer those questions. As it is, since the Constitution was passed, we have never had a convicted cabinet secretary, member of parliament, or other person in office.
But then
and even then, we have always said, let us exhaust the appeal process before we make a final determination, right? You find that even Honorable Sonko was busy running campaigns for governor until the Supreme Court gave its decision on whether or not he was fit to run for governor, based on the decisions of lower courts. Our question is not, are you a person of integrity? Our question is, have you exhausted all legal mechanisms in our country that has this all decided from the top whether or not you can run for office?
What does that then do to the perception? If we have, say, a cabinet that is full of candidates who are of questionable, their suitability is questionable depending on the question of integrity. So if they all had cases in court, would say they're still not found guilty. But what perception does that give?
We need to understand the letter of the law when it says, one is innocent until proven guilty. If you or anyone else in this country is arrested on the street by a police officer and taken into a cell, you do not become a guilty person on that date. You should be given a chance to have your day in court, bring your version of events, because you might find the organization of the policemen, most of who are currently sitting in cells, because they are the ones who are given the buck of whether people are committing wrongdoing or not. They are the ones we are arresting now.
Okay.
If these are the people who are arresting people and charging them in court, and in droves they are being taken to their own charges, can we then trust the system through which most of these cabinet secretaries were being arrested under the previous regime and under whichever regime, until these questions are heard by the judiciary that we trust? Until these questions are answered at the judiciary level, from the magistrate straight to the Supreme Court, you should not put someone down on those considerations. The police failed severally. There are poll workers who are still missing to date. There are politicians who are crying foul over how they were being handled under the previous regime. These are not people who have been found guilty.
So in the court of public opinion, it's not enough?
The court of public opinion should not have a consideration in this issue.
Okay.
The court of the judiciary of Kenya are the ones who are to answer these questions. And until they have answered and found these people to be unfit for office, by gross misconduct, by commission of crimes within the legal system of Kenya, we should not attack them and finish them based on mere allegations.
Okay.
Yes.
And Shadrach, of course, a political witch hunt has been named severally when you table integrity issues, then they say it was a political witch hunt. So what do you make of it? What is what?
Well, as a practicing advocate, I will tell you that let us surrender the responsibility of finding guilt, the responsibility of finding or establishing whether a thing was done correctly or incorrectly to the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. The tendency that we have of surrendering, this decision-making process to the members of the public or to the mob or the crowd, if you will, is not one that is very popular. It's not a sound thing to expect that the members of the public or the crowd will almost always make the right decision. And remember, even the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is one that was made by a crowd. The crowd, when asked by the Pilate whether they wanted to set free Barnabas or crucify Jesus, who is also called Christ, the crowd, against better judgment, chose that we should sacrifice the Son of God. Even after God sending us his Son to live within and amongst ourselves, we decided that we need to kill him so that we can free a thief or an armed robber. really, this should be telling you historically that when you surrender the responsibility, such serious responsibility to the crowd, then it becomes a mob injustice. Now, the issues surrounding the integrity of the Honorable Aisha Jumwa and her colleague or counterpart, Mithika Linturi, I mean, these are issues that are alive and well before the courts of law. In any event, if you just to pick, for example, a concern on the integrity of, Honorable Aisha Jumwa, Waziri, is that, number one, there were even graft cases as against her. Now, what became of those graft cases? I mean, this should also be one of the, more public concerns that should also inform these discussions, because members of the public are even watching and listening to some of the things that we are talking here. Members of the public should understand that following the year 2020, after, the handshake and this fallout between the president and the deputy then, and now Aisha Jumwa and her boss then, Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, she was facing graft charges. These graft charges were just but dropped recently, not so long ago. Yes, and it will not shock you if in the fullness of time, even these murder charges, as you even heard of her say, getting dropped, because after all is said and done, the deceased, and may God rest his soul in peace, the deceased died from a bullet wound. The Honorable Minister has even told us that she has never been licensed, she has never even touched any weapon called a gun, other than probably the kitchen knife that she uses to cut her fruits or cook her food. So really, after all is said and done, Nancy, it is important that we are fair to the Honorable, or to these men and women that have gotten the opportunity of serving us, because it's an opportunity, so that we allow them the benefit of doubt, that probably there is a reason or a sense in which we should believe that some of their problems or their sorrows are after or are as a result of their political affiliations then, before we came to the current regime. So when we give them that benefit of doubt, we surrender ourselves to time, because time is what will tell whether these people will ultimately be found guilty or will be acquitted by the honorable courts. Yes.
And just looking at what now lies ahead for them, let's talk about Machogu under the Ministry of Education. And we have the CBC, which is being reviewed, and then they'll say whatever is going to be added. But the Deputy President did say that it is not their wish to wish off the CBC. But what are your thoughts in regards to education, as at where the former Cabinet Secretary George Magoha left the state of CBC, and as people are going to join the junior high?
I believe that public participation in critical decisions such as education in our country is very critical, and the public participation starts from us, the previous students of 844, the people who are currently going through the CBC, and through whatever other proposal the government wants to give us. We need to have a serious audit on how these things are being done, so that when we are giving out our academic credentials within the country and outside, we have seen issues being raised about our academics with the international community very recently. So we need a very serious audit on the CBC, on the 844 system that came before, and on the proposal that the government wants to give us. And public participation of every sector and corner of this country should be taken into account, so that we can have a general consensus on which way we go forward. The CBC does have its challenges. It faltered right from the beginning, with Kenyans laughing at the general ease of which most of the questions look to look like. Right. Where you see other foreign countries are dealing with very complex nature of questions and education from a very young age. Our CBC was found to be wanting from junior stages of where our students were starting. So we do need to bring everyone in society together. Women, men, children, adults, professionals, educationalists, sit all together and come up with a system and a plan that will not just educate our youngsters coming to us into the job market, right, but also to create new opportunities. The world has changed. IT is critical now. Systems in which our agriculture is run is mostly done in technological terms. When medical practitioners, most of our educated students are coming into high school, finishing their high school, departing out of the country, because most of the university degrees and courses they would have loved to pursue in Kenya are not existing.
Okay.
So an entirely new system structure needs to start from scratch, because Kenya is a very developed country.
Right.
Far more developed than most of the region or most of the continent seems to agree to. But the education system at the university level, at the high school level, at the primary school level is not challenging enough.
Okay.
And we need to bring everyone together to agree on what we need to do.
Shadrach, in the interest of time, I'll let you weigh in on something different as pertains the Ministry of Agriculture and now the genetically modified organisms, which the president lifted the ban after 10 years. And of course, it has come under a lot of fire, even from the opposition and the leader, Raila Odinga, as well as Kalonzo Musyoka, who say they're going to take the matter to court just to see to it that the president does not effect the same. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Honorable Kalonzo's threat is not even a threat per se. I mean, it has even actualized into some action. I believe we saw my senior lawyer, Paul Mwangi, taking the issue before the court. Well, the view that I hold, and respectfully so, is that I think the issue about the GMO is an issue that has been rushed. It has been rushed out of panic. Remember that the country is in panic due to the drought that we are experiencing. We are experiencing a drought where even the 2 goats that I keep in my home rarely find even food to eat. So you can just but imagine the situation up north and even in the far parts of this country. Well, even while you might want to understand that this is a decision that has been made out of panic, we need to interrogate the effects of this decision of introducing GMO, which had long been banned by the government. So that, I mean, we need to understand that not everything that was banned or, outlawed by the previous regime is in itself a bad thing. And not everything that was, given the, the legitimacy by a government is in itself a good thing. So that anything that we did or we did not do in the previous past needs to be thoroughly interrogated through the, yes, before we can rush into legitimizing some of the things that might come and give us very adverse effects moving forward into the future.
And as we close, Elkanah, then we're still waiting for the 100 days. The president is somewhere in a month and almost 2 months. It's about 1.5. But now, do you think he's heading in the right direction now that his government is almost fully constituted?
To use an analogy, there are 3 arms of government. This is pretty much a tuk-tuk that the president is going to ride into the next 5 years. He has just put the 3rd arm of government into operation, so the 3rd tire is ready and he shall now start moving. He has done this in record time, in our belief, considering that during this time he had to contend with the issues of a presidential petition. He had to contend with the delay to the start of parliament. He had to contend with incoming drought and other crises of energy and fuel, all at the same time, while still trying to form his government. He has done it within a month and a half.
He has been busy.
He has been very busy.
Okay.
So give him another 55 days, and I'm pretty sure with his entire cabinet, parliament, and judiciary, which he inaugurated and added 8 more judges within the first day, give him 55 more days to give you results, and I'm pretty sure most of the country will be surprised.
Okay. Thank you. And Shadrach, in very few words, because we have to close.
Yes, I believe we should give it to the president. Dr. William Ruto has been very sensitive to time. He has demonstrated at the very least, at the beginning of his tenure of leadership, that he has his act together. He is deliberate about doing so many things. So really, today marks the beginning of that journey. Remember, there is no way he would have done it alone. He even conceded in his speech that he has been having a very rough time between himself and the deputy president. Right. And so with the coming in of the cabinet secretary, he expects to be eased up and things to flow. So let us give him our blessings. We wish him well. Let him steer us to better horizons. Right. Thank you.
And thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation. Of course, it's not complete. We can have you some other time just to, these are important issues. Right. Elkanah Mogaka, constitutional lawyer, and Shadra Kwambui, who is an advocate of the High Court. And I am Nancy Nelima. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. We have been talking about the Cabinet Secretaries in tray, what awaits them now that they have been sworn into office and commence work immediately. Our sign language interpreter has been Felista Adundo. We appreciate you for watching. Have yourselves a pleasant evening. Good night.
Yippee! Kamata floating at 349K. Oh yes, for only 3